The world is ending, everything's shutting down, we're all stuck in our houses, so what better time for me to talk about video games? I got a few big updates for you today for New World, some new gameplay footage, info on the game's action combat, weapon mastery system, and various types of PvP, including brand new PvP modes recently added to the alpha. All of this information coming from a developer diary and a very detailed blog post by game director Scott Lane. Some pretty cool stuff here, honestly. The more footage and information that they release about this game, the better I think it looks. Obviously, we're still waiting to get that hands-on time. We've got the beta coming out in April. For the time being, I'll continue to enjoy obsessively analyzing, overanalyzing every single bit of information they release like a crazy person. Hey, listen, we're all stuck here in quarantine, so just enjoy the video. Let's go ahead and start off with the developer diary call to arms. There was some new info in this, but they primarily kind of just did a general overview of the game's combat, progression, and PvP systems. Mainly, what's awesome about this is we got a ton of new gameplay footage. So they start off by talking about how New World is an action combat game. It is an MMO, but unlike most MMOs, it is 100% real-time action combat. This means no tab targeting or soft lock systems. You have to aim and hit your attacks. It's going to be all about movement, positioning, dodging, blocking, and lunging. Gear is not the most important thing, but rather your positioning, your tactics, and your reaction time is what matters most. They're saying this game is going to be a lot more like an action RPG than a traditional MMO. Now, obviously, we say that knowing that there are action MMOs out there, but usually the more true action combat you get, the smaller the scale gets. And it seems like what they're trying to do with New World is deliver honest-to-goodness action combat like something like Dark Souls, something they've said time and time again was a heavy inspiration for the combat in this game, on a much more massive scale with server sizes up to 1,000 players. The next big thing they talk about is the weapon mastery system, which they're saying will be adding a lot of depth and strategy to the combat, allowing you to get more proficient in the gameplay style that you enjoy. So basically, it's like weapon specialization. So there's no classes in this game. Weapons will kind of fill that role. You'll pick a weapon that you want to fight with, and the more that you use it, the better it gets. You're going to gain experience and then level up in that weapon's mastery, which will give you access to progression points for things like new abilities and bonuses. Every weapon type in the game will have its own skill tree, which will let you specialize play styles with that weapon. So for example, you could do a hatchet that focuses on throwing or melee damage. A sword and shield could either go offensive or tanky. In fact, just today, we got this Twitter video about 30 seconds long, which showed us a ton of different skills. I'm just gonna run through them real quick here. We had an axe throw, this power bow shot, a sword lunge, this mace uppercut, staff immolate, knockback, whirlwind, a bow retreat, some sort of self-heal or buff. There was rain of fire, flurry, uppercut, multi-shot, another buff here, ground slam, slash attack, elemental spear throw, a shield buff, a flurry attack, and they wrapped it up with a two-handed mace absolutely pummeling the enemy. So this really gives us a good snapshot of the fact that it's not just light and heavy attacks. Like there's a wide array of special abilities for each one of the weapon classes in the game, which again will kind of emulate traditional MMO classes. If you want to be a tank, you're going to go with the sword and board, and you're going to level it up, and you're going to unlock passives and active skills that you can use. It's a cool system, not something that we haven't seen done in other MMOs before, but you know, it just now you know that's what they're doing here. They also wanted to emphasize that you don't need to pick just one weapon type to focus on. In fact, as we've learned in the past, you can equip up to 3 different weapons at a time and swap freely as you play. And then beyond the traditional melee and ranged weapons, there will also be magic in the game, as we saw a moment ago with those abilities. There's a wide array of mage type abilities. They really highlighted this rain of fire skill in that developer diary video. And they also said that speccing into your playstyle like intellect will make you better with magic versus players who don't. So beyond the weapons that you pick and you use and you level up, there's also going to be character specialization. And then finally in the video, they touched on the different styles of PvP, whether it's like 1 versus 1, small scale, or massive armies. There's lots of different ways that you can experience PvP, and the 2 biggest ones will be the faction PvP and the territory wars. So faction PvP is the open world system. There's 3 factions in the game. Once you reach level 10, 10, I believe they said, that you pick a faction, and then if you visit a sanctuary, you can turn on PvP, which will let you fight anyone who is also flagged in the opposing two factions. And then of course there are the territory wars, which are the 50 versus 50 battles for zone and settlement control, and they're calling this the pinnacle of PvP. As I touched on in a prior video though, it's a tad concerning that they put so much emphasis on the territory wars, given that the way they work is that the guild leaders, the company leaders of the two companies that will be fighting these 50 versus 50 battles, the guild leaders will be picking the participants in the battles. It's not a system that you queue up for and you get a lottery chance to get entered. You actually have to get hand selected. So it makes me nervous that they emphasize this as much as it is, given that its very nature will likely exclude a good portion of the player base. Like, if you have to get hand picked to participate in these 50 versus 50 battles, I feel like there's a lot of people and guilds, which are called companies in this game, that are just going to get left in the dust. We'll have to see how that plays out, although we have recently learned about a new type of PvP in the game, which I'll touch on right now. So now let's move on to the blog post, the letter to the community. This was an update from game director Scott Lane, and he just wanted to go over how the closed alpha testing has been going, and then also just give some further details and information about their plans for the game going forward. So he started off by saying that the feedback has been great from the testers, between bug finding and giving them some brand new design ideas. And then back on March the 5th, they brought a brand new update called the Factions of War update to the alpha, which introduced a new PvP experience that they are saying will be part of the core of the game. Mainly, they added PvP missions, which will give players more control over the actions leading up to the massive 50 versus 50 company versus company wars. So according to the post, he said, "These new features bring us closer to our original vision for New World. For us, New World is always centered on the following core principles: a massive supernatural world that actively confronts the players that attempt to conquer it, skill-based combat that is tactical and deep at any scale, progression systems that foster player agency, intersecting game systems like crafting, gathering, killing, the corrupted, etc., that allow players to contribute to group goals, and territory conquest and control systems that allow players to create and manage player-driven governments." Scott goes on to say that their main goal is to create a world where the playstyles of PvP and PvE players will not only coexist, but will complement each other. He realizes that it may be a challenge, but they have plans to iterate the game's design until they finally feel like they accomplish it. A little worrisome that they're talking about plans to iterate its game design to accomplish their goal being so close to launch, especially in today's climate where so many games come out completely unfinished or just not fulfilling their core goals. There's concern that they're still talking about, hey, we'll iterate more in the future to accomplish our goals. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, I suppose. This is Amazon's first official entry into the game industry, so we can't assume it's going to be bad. Just give them a chance, you know what I'm saying? We'll give them a chance, I suppose. And I feel weird about this because, again, on one hand, I'm super glad they're being transparent and open with everything that's going on. As far as I understand, in a lot of game development, there's a ton of shifts and iteration and changes that happen prior to launch. It's just that we don't always hear about it because most developers aren't so open about those changes taking place. So, as with most things, we'll just have to wait and see. Let's get back into the article. So, they say that they want PvP players to benefit from the work of PvE players and vice versa. They've been building out systems to support this, like the factions, the crafting, town projects and progression, the wars, the corrupted breaches, the influence system, missions, and the soon to come to the alpha invasion system. And all of these activities will enable players to get better gear, overcome challenges in the game, and to grow their characters. Some of the key motivations that he touches on for the PvP system, of course, getting better rewards, controlling space, dominating others, and high stakes gameplay. They're hoping that their newest added features like the influence race, which are these PvP quests, coin rewards, and PvP damage scaling, will bring them closer to reflecting the higher risk of PvP and the better rewards, and they hope that this allows players to both show their dominance in PvP as well as draw in more PvE players in pursuit of those rewards. I get what they're kind of going with here. They want the PvP players to feel like the system is worth their time. They're going to offer some great rewards for it, but they also want to can't pull in PvE players. I will tell you, in my experience, traditionally the MMO crowd that enjoys PvE does not like feeling forced to PvP to get the best items. But obviously, if this game from the onset is designed with these systems in mind, people should know ahead of time that that appears to be the case. They want to draw PvE players into PvP, and he touches on this several more times within the article. So just be aware that that's the case. Now, beyond the PvE and PvP balancing that they're doing, they are also working to create a seamless open world MMO with a mix of sandbox and directed style gameplay. They want players to have quest as an option for leveling and exploration, but not have it be a requirement, because they're not looking to build a theme park MMO. He then points to two different alpha players' experiences. One player, Gildan, hit the max level of 60, only doing 38 missions and doing a bunch of other activities to gain experience and level up. Meanwhile, Nuko Miko did over 700 missions on his way to leveling up to 60. He then goes on to talk about all the different feedback they've been getting and how they analyze player data, playing the alpha themselves, reading forums and chats, reviewing surveys, and using all of this to help them refine the game while staying within their core vision of building a seamless open world MMO with a mix of directed and sandbox gameplay and balanced PvP and PvE. He also touched on the feedback they got from the initial implementation of the open world full loot PvP, mainly that the system was too punishing, and they believe that the Factions of War alpha release that just came through a couple weeks ago brings them closer to the right balance of PvPvE. Now, we've touched on them changing the PvP systems and the big uproar that created in the hardcore PvP community. It seems like a lot of that has died down, or at the very least, the people who were super upset about that being the case have moved on, because it's obvious that they're not going back. In fact, he specifically says that here. They've been monitoring things and it was too punishing, and they have no plans to bring back the old system. They want New World, he says, to be a game where PvP and PvE players can coexist and complement each other, which was not the case with the full loot open world PvP. They're going to continue to pursue that vision and adding features and content that align with those pillars. Overall, I think this is pretty good. I think between the blog post and the developer diary video that just came through a couple days ago, things are looking pretty good for New World. They seem to have a clear vision. You know, they don't want to make this just hardcore PvP open world game where it's just all about grouping up and player griefing and zergs of players, but they also don't want to make a theme park MMO. They want players to have the freedom between if you want to quest to level up, or if you want to PvP, or if you want to just grind mobs. I think there's still a big question, especially on the PvE side of things, if there's gonna be enough endgame content, enough activities for people to work towards. I mean, clearly they're trying to strike that balance between PvP and PvE. They're not going too hard in either direction, and they're trying to meld the two. I think that really is going to be a difficult balance to strike, but they seem like they're up for the challenge, and clearly they're happy to make some pretty big changes to fulfill that dream, because New World a year ago during its initial alpha testing looked quite a bit different from what we're seeing here, although evidently they've got this overall, these core pillars of how they want the game to be. They're willing to mix and match how the systems work together to try to accomplish that. So overall, a lot of interesting information. I was also really happy to see a ton of new gameplay. I'm looking forward to jumping into the game, and I hope New World delivers. Hope you guys all stay safe with the coronavirus lockdown. Everything's shutting up and people stuck in their homes. I'll be sure to come out with some more videos for you guys to watch. Hopefully that helps make it seem like the world isn't ending right now, right? Yeah, okay. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.